One of my friends recently asked me, because I guess I always seem like I'm in control and cool, and it was a female friend. She wanted to know if I ever get crazy, because I mentioned that sometimes in the past girls have gotten mad at me and have kind of like gotten crazy on me or whatever. And I was like, yeah, the only times I've ever kind of like felt like I've like either, I'm not gonna use the term lost control, but maybe just like was a version of myself that I didn't like, where I was like yelling or angry or something. I can only think of two situations. One was an ex-girlfriend that cheated on me, caused me to temporarily go bipolar, I feel. And then the other one was my most recent serious relationship, where I lived with a girl. And this girl, her name's Jessica. We lived together, and we even stayed living together after we had broken up for like an entire year. And she would, sometimes she would really get under my skin. The best analogy I could use is like imagine being like in an elevator, right? And she's like hitting all the buttons, like lighting everything up, hitting the freaking like fire escape, like the emergency button where the person's like, hello, is there an emergency? She's over here like throwing like stuff up at the ceiling and like hitting lights and like toggling the what do they call that thing? The camera, right? Every time the door is opening and closing, she's putting her hands in between like this. So she would drive me crazy from time to time and get me to yell. And 2/3 of the time our relationship was great. 1/3 of the time, very, very volatile and outrageous. 2/3 the bond of the electrons and the atoms or whatever were like stable, and then 1/3 it was like a nuclear. It was like Chernobyl. You know what I mean? Like 1/3 of the time it was like a nuclear site that was like unstable, and I remember one of the things that she used to do when we would fight, she would just walk out, right? Like when we would start having an argument or disagreement about something, she couldn't take it, and there was like the switch, this fuck it button that she would hit, and she would just walk out of my apartment, and I'd call her. I'd try to hit her up like, hey, where'd you go? She wouldn't respond. She'd just show back up at some point when she felt like it, 4 hours later or 8 hours later. I had no control over it. So like if it ever got heated, if we were talking on the phone, she'd hang up on me, and then I'd be like, yo, like I tried to tell her, like, please, like the one thing that really gets under my skin is when you just walk out in the middle of a fight. I find it extremely disrespectful, or if you hang up on me. And of course, as soon as I say that, she walks out, you know what I mean? So like there's no way to win, like and it's not about winning, but there's just no way to leave that situation feeling sane, you know what I mean? And another example of something that she would do to get under my skin, she would eat in bed all the time, even if I told her, please don't eat in our bed. We had a full-size bed, which is already tiny, and she hated cuddling me. I'm a cuddler. I want to be cuddled, and I want to give cuddles, and she would always slap my hand away, which made it harder because then you have to have more space in between you on a full-size bed. And she was like a wild sleeper. She like sleep diagonal, and she like slept like rigor mortis had set it, and like you couldn't move her politely. Like she couldn't possibly. And she would hit me from time to time. She'd like roll over, and like she was a deep sleeper, And I would just like wake. I'd literally be laying in bed on 1/8 of the bed, like about to fall. If I like moved too far to the left, I'd fall off. And I'd be wide awake, and I'd be just staring at the ceiling. Meanwhile, she's diagonal, her mouth's open, she's, like a body that's just been like thrown there and strewn about. And I'm trying to think. She would eat in bed, and I would tell her, please stop doing it, because I'd roll around in bed from time to time, and I would like roll into like a cracker or something. Like I would find like tiny pieces of food in bed, and I would get annoyed by it, and I would tell her, Jessica, please stop eating in bed. Please keep your food in the kitchen or on the couch, but do not eat in bed, because I keep finding like food when I'm rolling around. And I remember one specific time, she had a little nightstand next to her side of the bed. She would sleep on the right, I'd sleep on the left over here, right? So she's here, we're like this, and she's laying over. I don't know if she was high or drunk. When she would be half asleep, she was so out of it though, right? You can't have a conversation with her. she was just eating pistachio nuts and then throwing the shells, like throwing the shells on the nightstand, not in a bowl, like on the nightstand where some of the shells are falling onto the floor. A couple of them are like on the bed, and I'm like looking at her, I'm like, Jessica, please stop eating. Like, you're doing it right now. Can you please stop doing what you're doing right now? And I remember she was like, yeah, of course, yeah, I'll stop, no problem. Yeah, of course. But I'm like, Jessica, you're still doing it though. Like, can you please stop eating in bed? Yeah, for sure. I got you. Like, so I think that she knew that once she had moved in, she didn't have to do what I said anymore, because now, even though the lease was in my name, like technically by New York law, she was in. Like, I can't just like randomly kick her out. and like, it was bad. I guess a third example of something that she would do that would, it was both funny and it would drive me crazy. I just never knew what to expect when I walked in the front door, right? I would come back to the apartment after like a comedy show, and the entire apartment is rearranged. Different lights, and you know, the furniture is in different places, the bed's on the different side of the thing. She's got different, you know, drapes, right? And then even if I liked something, like a few days later, like even if I was like, hey, I really like the new drapes or whatever, like, I come back a couple days later, the drapes are gone, you know? Like, she's returned them to Amazon. Like our apartment was like a game of musical chairs. I just never knew when things were gonna change and what the change was gonna be. And, you know, she'd have different duvet covers on. I'm like, I don't like these duvet covers. They're too like firm. Like I like something softer. So of course that's the thing that stays, you know what I mean? That's the one thing that remains stagnant, right? And that's the type of girl she got in trouble with Amazon because she was buying and returning like such large quantities once that they actually shut her account down, and she had a panic attack because she was expecting like a refund of like $2,500 on some of these things. But like, she was always buying and returning things from either Amazon or retail stores in New York, and she would even give some of my things away. Like one time she was a nanny, and like one of my Star Wars toys, like a couple of my Star Wars like toys just disappeared. I'm like, hey Jessica, have you seen my droids? Like, I bought them from the Disney store, you know, like BB-8 and R2-D2. She's like, no, I gave them to the kids. I'm like, you can't give my things as gifts. Like, she bought me like this really cool chess set once. It was like a New York cityscape chess. It was like a $120 chess set, and we were playing a few times, and then all of a sudden it was just gone. And I was like, Jessica, have you seen my New York skyline chess set that you gave me? She goes, yeah, I gave it to the kids. I'm like, you gave that to me as a gift. You can't just take that and then give it as a gift to someone else anymore without asking, because it's mine now. And that's the type of person she is and was. And I will say I have probably 1,000 more examples, but that's probably good for now. Always entertaining, never a dull moment, and as long as you can deal with the Chernobyl, you know, explosions 1/3 of the time, then it's fun to watch the fireworks. So that was my old girlfriend and roommate Jessica.